Greetings, everyone, in the name of the Lord. Perry Stone here, and Manifest is on the air around the world. Thank you for joining me. I want to give you a very powerful prophetic nugget. As many of you know, we have taught on the mysteries of the parables that are in the New Testament. We have an entire DVD teaching on that. And I pointed out to you in that teaching some time back that numerous parables in the four Gospels actually deal with either the time of the end or are related to the return of the Lord or something related to what will happen when Christ returns and judgments and separations of wheat and tare and things of that nature. However, there is a parable that I was contemplating on the other day, meditating on, and this verse jumped out of the pages. And you know what I mean when I say that to you, of how all of a sudden you're reading something and it comes alive. And I realize, oh my, this is where we are at right now. Now, last week I talked about the danger of the new sword that Satan has, which is, well, you watch that program and you'll see what I preached. So this is like a follow-up on that, on experiencing the season of your biggest faith attack. That's the title we have on the screen. Experiencing the season of your biggest faith attack. Now, I want you to listen carefully because I want to read one verse and I'll come back to this in just a moment. This is a parable from Luke chapter 18, and this is the verse we're going to focus on. I tell you the truth. Now, Christ is speaking here. He, God, shall avenge them, his children, speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man comes, and that means when Christ returns, when he comes back, shall he find faith upon the earth. Now that leaped out at me the other day, and the first thing that we have to understand, and many of you are believers and you hear great faith teaching in your church, but why is faith so important? Well, first of all, Hebrews Chapter 11 is the chapter that deals with different people in the Bible and how their faith accomplished amazing supernatural feats during their lifetime. But Paul, and I believe Paul did write the book of Hebrews, writes Hebrews 11:1 that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not yet seen. When we talk about substance, that Greek word means holding up or support for. So faith is the support for the things that we are hoping for. And Hebrews chapter 11, verse 3 says, by faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God. But I'd like to key up on those four words in the King James translation. By faith we understand. Understanding comes through our faith. And that word understanding there in the Greek means to exercise the mind, to be able to fully comprehend. So it's by faith we understand that God created the heavens and the earth. Oh, no. I want to see it under a microscope. I don't need to. I can believe it by faith. As a matter of fact, when you look at me as a professor and you tell me that there was a boiling lake that cooled off and some type of biological cell hit another cell, forming an amoeba that eventually grew into a tadpole that grew up into a person that lost its tail and grew legs and eyes and became a person. Can I tell you something? It takes far more faith to believe that mess than it does in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. I can believe that a divine being that exists in another galaxy created everything better than I can to believe the theory of evolution. It takes more faith to believe in the nonsense of evolution than it does the faith it takes to require that a divine being put divine order, compassion, love in the hearts of people. Where did all emotions come from in creation? If we evolved, where did our emotions of compassion, where did our emotions for justice, where does all that come from? Well, we're created in the image and likeness of God, and those are His characteristics. Well, let me get off of that. That's another teaching. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6 says, without faith, it is impossible to please God. I looked up that word please, and it simply means to make happy or to gratify or to satisfy. So faith is what's holding us up as we hope for the things we're praying for. we understand by faith. And not only do we understand by faith, but we make God happy when we have faith. Now, instead of me going through the long length of reading the parable of Luke 18, let me share with you what the parable says and it teaches. In the parable, there is a woman, and she appears to be a widow woman who's by herself. She has no husband to help her or defend her. And she has an adversary. And that word adversary basically means someone who is an enemy. And there is some type of a legal reversal that she needs from a judge. For her to get what she needs, she has to go to a judge, have the judge to review her case, and get a legal reversal on her behalf. She goes to a judge, and it may be because she was poor or she wasn't important. He ignored her. So she comes again to ask the judge's help, and he ignored her. She comes again, he ignores her again. But here's the point. She is persistent, steadfast, and says, I am not giving up on this situation. So eventually the judge knew that the woman was not going to quit and go away. So basically the judge says this to those in the judicial system: she's wearing me out. If I don't hear her case, she's never going to stop. So he hears her case. He, deals with the case properly. And so Jesus then says this, that the judge says, I will avenge her. And that word avenge her there means to vindicate or to punish. Now, Jesus comes along and takes the same parable and talks about people that pray a long time and how he will eventually avenge his elect or his chosen ones. If you read the word avenge in the normal translation of the Bible, which is the 1611 translation that most of us use, or what we call the New King James, many times the word avenge is used there, and we just think it means to vindicate. There's two different Greek words with two different meanings used in Luke chapter 18. When the judge says, I will avenge her, it means to vindicate and punish the person working against her. But when God says, I will avenge my elect, it does not mean vindicate, it means to make happen. In other words, I will hear their prayer and I will make happen what they are praying for. That is that verse there in Luke 18 where God says, I will avenge my own elect. Now, look here, because I want to show you something that almost looks like a contradiction. It almost looks like a contradiction. When Christ flips this parable around and makes it practical and says that it's dealing with believers who follow Him, who are praying to God, He says two things, Luke 18:7. God will avenge him, though he bear long with them. So what does that mean? The implication there is the answer will take a long time in coming. I think you'd agree with me, because the whole parable there is the woman kept going and she kept going and she kept going. So it took her a long time, more than normal, to get the judge's attention. So in the interpretation of the parable, he is saying this, okay, God is going to answer you, although it may be long in the answer getting there. And then he says this, but he will avenge them speedily, Luke 18:8. Now, wait a minute. Either it's going to take a long time or it's going to happen fast. And it appears to be a contradiction there in that, okay, 1 minute it's a long time to get it answered, and the next minute it's a short time to get it answered. It's not a contradiction. Now, here's the point. It may seem a long time in the answer coming, but the moment it is going to come to pass, it will happen fast. In other words, here's your answer. Here, it's coming. Oh, I'm waiting, I'm praying, I'm holding on, I'm believing, I'm holding on. Bam, it happens. So it's not a contradiction there that it may take time for a prayer to be answered, and there'll be other times when it'll happen quickly. One example I can go to is the book of Daniel. I mean, you know, he didn't have, when he went to the lion's den, God had already shut the lion's mouth before Daniel got there. So before you call, the Lord says, I will hear and I will answer. Then in Daniel 10, Daniel is fasting and praying for 21 days, and he can't get an answer to a vision that he had. And he's wanting God to show him what this vision is. What is the answer? And it's taking 21 days or 3 full weeks, but his prayer was being hindered. So in one instance, which is the instance of the lion's den, there is no delay or hindrance in the answer coming. When it comes to the 21 days, there was a demonic principality stopping the angel of God from physically, literally bringing the answer to Daniel. So it took a long time. Now watch this. It took 21 days, which is a long time to pray nonstop. However, the moment the angel was released, what happened? Speedily, the answer came. So this is what happens many times when we're praying and seeking God. We don't get an immediate response all the time, but we don't give up. We don't quit. We have to hold on to the confession of our faith, nothing wavering. Because if we don't hold on to it, we'll start speaking against it. And once we start speaking against it, we can actually stop the process or really slow down the process of our answer coming once we, with our own mouth, speak against or speak unbelief or negatively or contrary to what we're asking God for. Now, here's the key verse. I said it a moment ago. When the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? Now, the earth is everywhere. So if I were to read this verse, the implication of that verse would be this. At the time of the return of Christ, there will be a shortage of real faith on the earth. And because the context deals with prayer, it will be a lack of faith concerning the prayers that we are praying being answered. Now let me say that again. This is not just a parable of Jesus telling a story from his day. It's a parable he uses to explain how it's going to be prior to his return on earth as it relates to people who are seeking him, people are praying for him, people that are asking him for something, and the answer is not coming. That's why you have to hold fast. That Greek word means to seize on the confession. Now, the King James will say profession, but the Greek word there is confession of your faith, nothing wavering. And the real key here is not wavering. I've often said this. It takes the faith, the grain of a mustard seed, to see God do something. That's all. That's very little faith. But the key is the absence of unbelief. Who shall say to the mountain and shall not doubt in his heart? That's the real key there. Is not big faith or the amount of faith. It's having simple faith, but having no unbelief. And in the parable here, it's the same spiritual principle. It's praying, but holding on to your prayer. It's praying and holding on to your confession, because the danger will be that there will be so many distractions and so many hindrances to our prayers and so much activity going on all around us that we will become weary in well-doing and not reap our harvest in due season. We just become weary and we quit and we give up. You know, we quit going to church. We get mad at the preacher. They did or said something we don't like. We're going to go off somewhere else and we live in confusion the rest of our life, you know. And so this is very, very important. The revelation that is in this parable is what I'm about to tell you right now. In the end of time, or the time of the end, which is it could be months or years before Christ returns, the problems are going to mount up in the lives of people to the point that many of them are going to tend to give up. They're going to put an option in their spiritual walk to quit and to give up. People get disappointed in ministers. They get disappointed in a ministry. They get disappointed in church. And what do? They just give up and they quit going to church. Well, I'm going to tell you something. When you stand before God, you will not be able to stand in the excuse, well, I got mad at them for what they did, or I didn't like what they said. That will be no excuse. That excuse will not stand on the bema when you stand before Christ. So keep that in mind. The second thing this parable indicates is, at the time of the end, people will pray and become weary of waiting for the answer. So there's a tendency just to quit, just give up. But there's then a tendency of becoming weary waiting for the answer to come. Then the third implication of the parable is, because of a lack of a sudden answer or a quick answer, when people believe they need the answer, it will make people lose their faith. Now, I'm going to reiterate something I said because we always have every program is a brand new audience of people. The past at least 2 years, there have been a lot of questions that people have asked. I don't read every email that comes in, by the way, but we have a staff that does, but they'll come and say, you're getting a lot of questions about this or about that, or when our secretary reads letters for me and then we answer them when we can, they'll say, you're getting a lot of questions on this. So what is happening now is creating questions based on what people have seen happen. And here are some of the questions that have been coming in. I've prayed and fasted for my healing or for a loved one, and I'm not healed yet. Or they will say, I prayed for my loved one to be healed and they died. I don't understand. I believe in fasting. I believe in prayer. I believe if you agree, it shall be done. Why did they die? I prayed for my family to stick together and my husband walked out on me or my wife walked out on me. He left me with children. He wants a divorce. He's fell in love with another woman. I want to talk to some of you men about other women. Let me tell you something. Don't you leave a proven commodity. You've got a good wife. I'm talking to the men. She cleans your stinking dirty socks and underwear. She takes care of the dishes. She helps raise the kids. She cooks your food. Brother, that's a proven commodity. Stay with the one you love. Go back to that first, the Bible says you've left your first love to a church. That was speaking of Christ. Go back to that person, love that person, and enjoy life with them. Now, whoever I just talked to, I may have just helped you in your marriage because there are dads that are just, and it's moms too, and they're just up and walking out for no reason whatsoever. And the reason some of them give is they're just tired and weary. Well, you know what? Take a vacation. Get away. Go pray. Have a good 1 to 2 to 3 hour prayer meeting. You might be surprised what a novel idea is to pray for your problems. Well, if I pray, God's not hearing me. Yes, He's hearing you. Go to the book of Daniel. If you meet the conditions of prayer, the Bible says He hears you the first day you pray. But you're dealing with crazy people. You're dealing with circumstances. You're dealing with stubborn people. You're dealing with rebellious people. You're dealing with liars. You're dealing with all these people. And it takes God time to work situations out through the type of people that are out there. Your problem is not, most of the time, can I say this? Most of the time, my problem has never been the devil. It's been people. And many times it's the enemy using people who don't even know they're being used or would never confess they're being used or would be greatly offended if you were to tell them they were being used by the enemy to do harm or danger. Okay, let's get off of that. Some people say, I have prayed, I've given my tithe and offering, and I have lost my job. So here's the thing. There are so many different reasons why things happen the way they do. I know of people, can I say something to you? I know of people that their family prayed for them to be healed, but privately they would tell their best friends, you know what? I'm suffering a lot. I really want to go to be with the Lord. And so their desire to be with Christ was greater than their desire to remain. Although they loved their family, they wanted to stay here, but the suffering and the pain they were going through. And I've had people, we've had people that have passed away recently that made that statement. I just want to go be with Jesus. I've had a great life. I got babies and grandbabies and all that, but look, I want to go be with Jesus. So you cannot befault someone whose desire is to go be with the Lord. Years ago at my wife's home church, she called me. I was in revival in Missouri, and she said, Sister so-and-so, it was a lady in the church, great lady, by the way, has pancreatic cancer. They've diagnosed her, and the church is praying for her healing. Well, the church was praying. I went into prayer, and she passed away right after that. Of course, people were so distraught and upset. They said, we know God heals. Why did He take her? But the woman had privately gone to the pastor's wife and said, I am suffering, and I have lived a good life, and I've served God for years, and think about that time she was in her 60s. And she said, I just have this desire to go to be with the Lord. I don't want to have to fight this battle. And so the pastor's wife had to tell the church this is what she wanted. So she willed to be with the Lord. Paul even said that. I have a desire to go be with Christ. And he could have died in the stoning, but God raised him from the dead in the city of Lystra. He could have died by a shipwreck, and God kept him alive. Because Paul said, it's better for me to be with you for the gospel's sake than to go to heaven, although my heart is in heaven. But he understood, for your sake, I'm going to stay here, but for my sake, I just as soon be out of here. So sometimes people are not, now what I'm saying to you is there's answers that we may not know that may be beyond your knowledge that involve the person that may not have actually been healed. And when it comes to job losses, I want you to always go back to the book of Job. Man, he lost his health. He lost 10 children. He lost the homes. He lost all of his livestock. Here's a billionaire for his day that goes completely bankrupt. And he says, you know what? I came in the world with nothing. I'll leave with nothing. My love and faith is in the Lord. And he stayed that way through the whole trial. And what did God do in the end? He turned the captivity of Job in the end when he prayed for his friends. So I just want to say this to all of you who are dealing with issues that are serious. There are some serious issues out there. Number one, there are things that happen that we don't understand till we get to heaven. Number two, we have to be like Job. All of us have been through our own type of test and our own type of hellish trials and our own hour of testings. We will all go through those at some point. But when you keep your trust in God and you say, I don't understand this, God, you deal with it, you take it, I don't even know how to handle it, you take it, it will take time. But we have to look at the end. We have to look down the road of not where we're at now, but what does God have a month, 2, 3, 5, 6 months from now? I've even known people that have lost their companion, and it's horrible. But then God would bring them someone and they would say, you know what? This was God's plan all along. I never understood it. I never knew why, but God had a plan despite what I went through. So remember this, when your faith is under attack, God has a plan if you'll hold on. And let it be said of you that when he returns, he finds faith on the earth through you. Because we're almost out of here, folks. I'm telling you, these are the last days. I want you, now, some of you will, you'll cut off the TV at the program, you'll cut off the YouTube video at the program. Don't do that. Watch all of what I'm going to say. Some of the most important stuff comes up toward the end of the program, so always keep watching. We'll be back in a moment. Greetings, everyone. This is Perry Stone, and I have a great announcement for you. I'm now making available to each of you the International Prophetic Summit, the greatest summit I was ever able to participate in. These are available on CD and DVD albums. There are 11 messages in all by myself, Bill Cloud, Mark Biltz, and also Joel Richardson. Let me just give you the titles you're going to hear. Is the Seven-Sealed Book Now Being Opened? The Parable of the Fig Tree and What It Means for America. What would Jesus do during this present civil war? A biblical response to aliens and UFOs. I preached a message called The Green New Deal and its economic impact on your family. Another great message that was preached. A word for America from the prophecy of Habakkuk. Another message is called What Time Is It? Bill Cloud stunned the audience with a message called Beware the Aviv Rav. I preached a message called Answering Tough Apocalyptic Questions That No One is Answering. Mark Biltz came back and preached a message called Jeremiah is a Prophet for Our Day. I closed the conference out with this message, Should You Prepare for a Pele Transition? Now I want to say something to you. It is a right now word. They are prophetic. They answer questions. And these are the unedited versions of the message. Now listen to me. On the Manifest telecast, you only get about 20 to 21 minutes of a message. I still have another 40 minutes to preach. Not only that, but we never show the speaker's messages, and sometimes some of the information they share is for certain at-home ears only. It really would be rejected if it was put on social media. So I'm going to tell you how to get this series. If you want to get the CD album, the number is 21PS CD, and it's for $65 or more donation. If you would like to get the DVDs, and can I suggest to you to get the DVDs because, especially with Mark Biltz, they have PowerPoint pictures. I show you pictures in my messages, and people really seem to enjoy that. But the DVDs are offer number 21PS DVD for $95. Now, here's how you order. You can call toll-free 1-888-21-BREAD, order that way, or you can contact perrystone.org on the internet, log on and order online, or just send us a check to Perry Stone, P.O. Box 3595, Cleveland, Tennessee 37320. Now remember this, that those checks and those orders go 100% to the Voice of Evangelism Ministry to help keep the Manifest program on the air. Now we're living in the greatest prophetic times that there's ever been. There is a clash between two kingdoms taking place. You are only arming yourself properly if you are armed with revelation knowledge and the truth of God's Word. May I encourage you, call, go online, or write me right now. God bless you. Give me your undivided attention, please, for the next few moments. And many times people will say, Perry, we didn't know you were coming to the area. And I've always told them that's because when our program ends, you turn it to something else and you don't listen to these announcements. This is how you know where we're coming to. And so we're going to be doing a very special Awaken America revival at Omega Center International the entire month of January, every Tuesday night except one, and also in February, the 1st of February. And we're going to be coming to the sanctuary in DeLand, Florida. The information's on the screen there. Also, the church on Strayer in the month of January. We've got some great meetings coming up also during the time of the month of February. But what I want to share with you, and I want to prepare you for this, is that I have a journal in which the Lord over many years has given me dreams and at times visions. There have been several visions that I have seen that I believe were going to take place somewhere in the future that I just didn't talk about or say much about because they were so detailed and actually troubling for my spirit. Several months ago, the Lord spoke to me and He said, if I give a watchman a warning and the watchman does not give the warning, the blood of the people is on his hands. And a great fear came upon me. And so I asked the Lord what I should do, and I felt inspired to go ahead and do this. We've taken visions of the past, the present, and those of the future, and some of them are my father's before he passed away. And we put them and compiled them into a book. It's called The Visions. And we also talk about 10 steps to take at the time of the end, a lot of other things. We talk about what are visions. We talk about that, the ancient oracles, how God spoke to the ancients, etc. But I'm letting you know that sometime after the first of the year, and I don't have an exact date, we're going to release that book publicly over the Manifest telecast and also through our YouTube channel. So I want you to just kind of be alerted to that and aware of that when that comes, because this has been very difficult to write, not in that it's difficult writing it, it's difficult to share it. And you get so much criticism, and of course I've dealt with that my entire life. I've dealt with all forms of criticism, but I have determined that I will answer to the Lord in eternity, and I want to please Him and please Him alone. And that's why I'm willing to just, take the hit, you might say, for sharing some of the things, because when they come to pass, then people say, I remember we were warned about this. And that's part of what we're doing here. So keep that in mind. PerryStone.org, our website, Perry Stone Ministries, put that in their Facebook page. And also the Perry Stone YouTube channel is growing greatly, and we want to keep up with you through social media. I'll see you next week. Thank you.